Hello my little Access to HE nooblets, welcome to the next informative video on phagocytosis, which forms part of the infectious disease unit. Before we start, as ever, let's give an overview of the human immune system, categorized into two distinct sections, the specific and the non-specific. The non-specific is what we're going to be talking about today. It's immediate, it's fast, it's ready to go, but it's a bit sluggish, it's a bit dim. It doesn't know what it's fighting against, but it does know that it needs to fight it because it's not meant to be there. The specific system is slow, but once it is in action, boom, baby, absolutely destroys all of the pathogens that you need to. So today's video on the non-specific system is about phagocytosis, which is the third video in a series to explain the non-specific system. Initially we talked about barriers to infection, and if we use the castle analogy, barriers to being invaded by foreign troops is a moat around the castle, is the really high stone walls with the turrets firing arrows. Well, we don't have that in our bodies. We have other cool stuff like stomach acid, like mucous membranes and hairs and sebum and all kinds of stuff to stop being infected by pathogens. But as we know, and we saw in the last video, that pathogens often can evade or get over or around those barriers to infection. And so when somebody gets into the castle, ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, the alarm needs to sound. I'm sure it sounds a little bit more serious than that. But we need to get the boys out of the barracks, or we need to get the soldiers out of the barracks, and we need to get them to the fight. And that's what the inflammatory response is about, is getting those, in terms of the human body, the white blood cells to the area of infection. And so that's what the inflammatory response is about getting the troops to the battle. So today we're talking about phagocytosis, and if the inflammatory response in our analogy is about getting the troops to the battle, well, phagocytosis refers to the actual way in which they fight. So it could be sword fighting, it could be archery or whatever. It's how they kill the intruders. And phagocytosis is a non-specific way in which white blood cells can kill the invading pathogens. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. First things first, I feel that it should be said that you pretty much know what phagocytosis is. Phagocytosis is a trumped up version of endocytosis, and I know you know what endocytosis is. If you don't, go back through my videos and re-educate yourself. It's about how a cell brings something into it and packages it in a vesicle. It's in fact one of the examples we gave in the cell biology test. And indeed, every cell in the body that has a nucleus can do phagocytosis. So you know, Joe Bloggs and the digestive system can be doing its thing and chomping up food and absorbing food, and then it can come across some bacteria and go, that shouldn't be there. And it can bring it in through endocytosis and it can do its job. So all cells in the body that have a nucleus can do phagocytosis. But fortunately, we have some professionals, which is their main role. That's what they're designed to do. Their structure and function will reflect that job. And to name but just two, macrophages and dendritic cells are some of those professional phagocytes. They're cells that are specialised in the process of phagocytosis. So let's have a look at what phagocytosis is. Let's set up the cell membrane of a dendritic cell. A dendritic cell is a white blood cell, and really we should be using leukocyte, which is the name for the white blood cell. And it is a phagocyte, so it means it's part of the non-specific system, and it eats things that it knows shouldn't be there. It doesn't really identify a mount a response to that particular virus, it just knows that that shouldn't be there. And in order to do that, we have to have some matching of the cell membrane to the virus itself. So here's a virus. This could be a bacteria or a pathogen that has its protein spikes on. And that has to match with the receptor on the cell membrane of the dendritic cell, or in fact any body cell, if you like, because that's what they all do. Just a couple of technical terms which I can throw in. The receptor on a pathogen, so this is a generic term, is called a PAMP. PAMP, that's a pathogen-associated molecular marker. I'm not going to write it, you can Google it or stop me and replay me. A pathogen-associated molecular marker. And the corresponding receptor on the cell, or macrophage, is a PRR. That is a pattern recognition receptor. Okay, now you know what happens when this happens. When this magic happens, you know what happens. The cell membrane sags and eventually puts that nasty virus inside a vesicle, or a vesicle, depends where you're from. Luna, shh. It's going mental. How unfortunate. Luna, wait, shh. Try to educate you. Thank you. Okay, so when the virus has been put into the vesicle, we call it a phagosome. So that thing that you can see in the cell there, that vesicle, the virus inside the vesicle, is called a phagosome. What do we do with it when the cell gets in there? When the vesicle gets in there with the virus in it? What then we see is a lysosome, this thing in purple, bind with the cell membrane, spill its contents into the vesicle. Now that could be an enzyme that breaks down stuff, or it could be an acid bath, and that virus or pathogen gets broken up into its bits and bobs and completely gets dismembered of all its features that we learnt about and the structure of a function of a virus. So with that then, what the cell needs to do really is to warn, is to inform, is to tell the nearby cells of what it's just done, because it's just taken in some nasty thing that shouldn't have been there. And it needs to tell the outside area, what do I need to do? Has anybody seen this before? Now, you've got social media to let people know that you've gone off to the lakes or you've gone on some kind of marathon. You know, look at me, I'm Mr. Adventurous or Mr. Fit and Fiddle. You know, you might put on Snapchat or TikTok, which is the bane of my life. Well, I prefer to learn about the cellular type of social media, and that are these kind of rugby posts on the outside of the cell membrane. That's where they present chopped up bits of their virus. That's how they tell the outside world, look how good I am, look how fantastically brilliant I am at chewing up things that shouldn't be in here. Well, that social media for a cell is called MHC1. You can have Twitter. MHC1 stands for Major Histocompatibility Complex. Major Histocompatibility Complex. And it's the social media in which cells use to let the outside world know what's going on. Every cell that has a nucleus can do this. So what's special about these professionals? Well, fortunately for us, they have their own secret code of a social media. Notice how I've done 2 legs on the rugby post. That's the special code. It's as simple as that. So while every cell that has a nucleus presents their social media on MHC1, phagocytes like macrophages and dendritic cells have also another type of social media called MHC2. They have both, they have MHC1 and MHC2. So these are sort of professionals, and this is very, very important because MHC2 is only readable by specialized cells of the immune system. Mr. Joe Blogs of the digestive system's got no idea how to read this social media. It's like the dark web. It's all around them maybe, but they've got no idea what it means. But when a specialized cell reads it, they have the power to read that, then something magic happens. That's the bridge between the non-specific system and the specific system. And I'm not going to go into it in very much detail because we're going to have many videos on that when we come down to it. But if a specific cell recognizes that you've just got virus X or virus B, it's going to mount a nuclear war against that because it's seen it and it's recognized it. So that's what dendritic cells and macrophages have differently to generalized sort of everyday Joe cell. One thing that you need to know is that this thing here, this MHC2 and the virus that's attached to it, or the bit of virus that's attached to it, is called an antigen. And an antigen is something that triggers a specific immune response. Antigen. So an antigen is something that triggers a specific immune response like it's doing right now. And we call macrophages or macrophages and dendritic cells APCs, antigen presenting cells. And antigen presenting cells are those that can trigger a specific immune response. Very important you have an idea of the difference between MHC1 and MHC2 for later videos. I'm setting that up, so don't forget that it is important. I'm going to finish with one more point in that macrophages and dendritic cells, so at the start, are a bit dim. They don't really know what virus they're coming up against. They'll just eat it when they know it's there and it shouldn't be there. Well, we have some ways of tagging them for destruction which helps the phagocytes to do their job. So viruses and pathogens may well be swirling around them, but they don't have the right pattern on their cell membranes to take them in, endocytose them, and break them up with their lysosomes. So we have certain protein molecules, like these Y-shaped proteins here, which are antibodies. And antibodies tag the virus for destruction. So this cell might not be able to replicate this might not be able to recognize this virus, but they certainly will recognize the antibody, and that helps them take that in and then nosh it up for breakfast. Another thing that the antibodies do is clump the viruses together. So, there'll be one receptor there, then there will be another virus there. And so by tying them all together, you really restrict and inhibit the pathogenicity of the virus. In other words, you stop them from doing what they need to do to infect and cause disease. So those antibodies are really important, and another link to the specific immune system, although you don't know it yet. So antibodies tag viruses and pathogens for destruction. We also have complement proteins as well that do a similar job. But that's phagocytosis, and that is the beauty of this topic. Unbelievable, isn't it?